All right, folks, today we are going to revisit the bone sauce. All right, folks, at this point, we have made nearly 200 videos on this channel. And despite the fact of, maybe there's a little bit of disappointment in some of them, maybe I didn't come across the way I wanted. And when you speak extemporaneously in these types of videos, you invariably leave things out or you don't say them quite the way you wanted to. But in this particular case, the one video of all the ones we've done that I've been profoundly disappointed with was the bone sauce. And the reason why is because I had to do it so many times over so many days that when we finally got around to filming it and I got it right, I didn't catch the footage and I was just aggravated and frustrated. So folks, one of my biggest pet peeves is how-to videos that don't give you all the how-to. So thankfully, a very nice lady called us out on it. Maybe not called us out so much, but asked us to redo it and to go into much greater detail. Well, folks, by the time I'm done today, anybody who wants to replicate this will at least know the steps that we followed step by step to make that possible. Okay, first off, what are you going to need? Now, of the available references out of there, you've seen everybody use everything from clay pots to stainless steel to you name it. And I did every last one of them, folks. And the only thing that turned out was when I was at my wit's end on how to make this stuff possible, the clay was busting up, the stainless wasn't sealing right. The only thing, the best thing, believe it or not, was this cheap, off-the-shelf roasting pan. I think I got it from Target or something. This turned out to be the best thing to do, and I'm going to show you why it works out better, I think, than all the others. Okay, so the other tools you're going to need, the other materials you're going to need, is some hardware cloth cut essentially into the shape. You want to overhang that a little bit, and that'll make sense here too in a little while. You want to cut that hardware cloth, you want to have it set. You're going to need some tie wire. Now, does it come like this with duct tape on the outside of it? No. It's an old electrician's or pipe fitter's trick where you basically take the tie wire, wrap it with a bunch of duct tape, cut a hole out of it, and then when you need to use it, you just kind of pull it out of the center. It's starting to look like an Alton Brown kind of thing. He's a big motivator for a lot of the stuff we do, but anyway, you'll need the snips or the shears to cut that, and you're also going to need some clines or some lineman's pliers, at least something like it. So the last thing you're going to need, well, close to the last thing you're going to need are the bones. Now, let's talk about the kind of bones and let's talk about where they came from. You could fill this thing up with chicken bones if you wanted, but I found out in all the failures in trying to make this that the best bones you can use are pork and beef bones, and specifically marrow bones. In short, they're basically coming from the extremities of the animal, okay? Now, in this case, I got beef bones. I've been saving these for a while just to do this. And plus, we're going to need a lot more since we're coming on to the spring. I need to get this stuff on these trees and have them protected. Okay, so in this particular case, I got beef bones. Some of them have come from a femur, some of the ossobuco, which is basically this part right here. And then also I got some of these pig bones that I saved, and this is a pig shank. Now, I don't want to stick them all in here, right? I want to open it up. I want to have things exposed to where I have access to the marrow. That's another mistake I made. Now, to do that, if you go to a store, if you're a person that has to go to the store and buy them, maybe talk to the butcher there and see if they can cut them up for you. Just cut them, and I'm going to show you why that's important. Now, in my case, I'm going to take this handy-dandy bandsaw, which is not made for this, but in the spirit of my man Alton Brown, I'm going to use what works. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these bones that aren't cut already. I'm going to cut them down into bite-sized pieces. Now, folks, I also got to get all this done before Michelle comes out here and sees the mess I made. Because every time y'all see me on a camera, you always notice that there's a lot of junk in the background because I'm in here. Well, anyway, let's get this chopped up. All right, folks, got these bones chopped up, and if you don't have a bandsaw, which, like I said, I mean, if nothing else, maybe these bones actually cleaned all all the metal shavings and stuff I had on that bandsaw. You can always use a hacksaw if you had to. If you need to, you know, you could use a bone saw. That's what it's made for. Okay, with that said, now I'm gonna take, and this is why, like I said, after all the failure, this is why I think this is more superior, at least this way of doing it. I'm gonna line these bones in here. And the cool thing about using this little thing is that it kind of gives me, I know exactly how high I need to be. And folks, I'd also say it's easier to do when these bones are at least frozen or pretty close to it. I'm gonna situate these bones in here in such a way to where it's not gonna extend much past the lid here, okay? So I'm gonna play around with this and kind of get as many of them in here as I can, because the more bones I have, the more sauce I'm making. Okay, so now I'm gonna situate this on top of this, and this is where it gets a little tricky. You may have to employ some help to get this over there. So I'm gonna get this like so, and I'm gonna flip it over. Yeah, worked out. I'm gonna flip it over and hopefully the bones don't all fall out of there. Okay, so as you can see, I got a little bit of a lip. I got it pretty well covered, but there's a little bit of a gap in here. That's not good when you make this bone sauce. You want this thing nearly airtight. And I'm gonna show you some little tricks after about the 8th time of doing this to make this thing right. Okay, so now that I got them in there, I wanna make sure all this is good. I'm just gonna kind of fold it down a little bit around a few of the corners where it's really sticking out. Okay, the lid's on there, the bones are inside, but it would have made more sense had I done the next step before I put the lid on. But I can still do it. I'm just gonna kind of shift this off to the side. And folks, this is kind of critical because I did it a time or two where I didn't do this. Just take some regular tap water and it takes a lot less than you think. If you don't do that, I'm telling you right now, it's just gonna stick to the bottom and it's like when you cook a roast, it doesn't take as much liquid as you think it does. So I'm just gonna kind of scoot it off to the side, pour about a 1/4 cup of water down the side of there, right? So now I'm just gonna situate it back over, kind of press it down, make sure everything looks all right. Okay, I'm just gonna set this off to the side, and now we're gonna talk about this tire wire. So now, got the tire wire. Ain't gotta be nothing fancy, just the stuff off the shelf. But like I said, it works a whole lot easier if you just wrap it up with some duct tape. And it's critical to double this stuff because it's strong, but you need a little bit more strength to hold this lid as tight as you're gonna want it. So double it up. And then if it helps, in my case it does, it's just an old habit, I'm just gonna crimp the end of this so I can weave it through the tough spots if I should have to. Okay, so get our pot over here. And I'm just gonna set the first one. This is where this roasting pan really comes in handy because this helps me secure everything, and you're gonna see why here in a second. I'm gonna slide this underneath, and I'll tell you what, to make it easier on myself, I'm gonna slide it going the other way. Just kind of get it about midway. We're gonna put a few of these on there. Now, I could push this side down, but from experience of having done it before, it seemed to work a lot better if I just kind of weave it up through the hardware cloth and then do the same on the other side if it overlaps enough. But in this case, it doesn't. Now, I'm gonna run this through the top of the roasting pan. Okay, this is your most critical one. I'm just gonna put a twist or two in it. Just enough to let my clients get a hold of it. Now, I'm gonna make sure this thing's centered all the way around. Now I'm gonna do the Watusi on it with this. Let me just kind of trim some of this off. I'll trim it off even more. Everything's good. I'm gonna twist it. I'm gonna show you a little trick here. To get this thing as tight as it can be, when you get it as tight as you can with twisting it, just kind of leverage yourself on the side of that roasting pan. That's why this structure, I think, is one of the many reasons why I think this structure is more superior. Now, you don't wanna go overboard and break this stuff. But right there is pretty good. All right, so I got the one around the center. That's the most critical, but these others are no less critical. You may have to shift a little bit, and like I said, employ help if you need to. So here's where the next one comes in handy. I'm gonna run it down this handle, And I'm gonna slip it underneath the bottom. Now be careful when you mess with this tie wire. If you mangle it up too much, it's gonna wanna break. So just do what you need to do to get it where it needs to go and then drive on. So it's through both handles on the end, and then I'm just gonna weave it through here. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same exact thing that I did over there, over here. So this thing is secured. We got one dual piece of tie wire going across the side, and then two going that way, and using the handles as your allies, okay, to keep everything secure. So it's tight, it's good, but you're not done. This, folks, I don't know which part of this is most critical, but I know this is definitely part of it. Now, what I got in this bucket is clay that was exposed to me by the pigs. Now, I've been hanging on to this clay and I've left it in here for a while. I'm gonna pack this stuff in all the way around the sides. This is what's gonna make it airtight. And then when it gets hot, it's gonna almost make something of a terracotta-like thing. So when you break it apart, remember you wanna get it underneath this stuff too. When you break it apart, it's gonna be kind of tough. It's not tough, it's just gonna take a little bit of work. So wherever your wires are, your tie wires, you wanna make sure you get underneath there. I'm just gonna pack this stuff in. And you want it kind of soupy. You want it a little bit like Play-Doh. Man, your mom's gonna kill me if I leave this stuff sitting out here. So, this is all good. Next thing I gotta do is, before Michelle comes out of the back, I need to clean this stuff up and get this thing out there for phase 2. We got this part done, let's go do the rest. So we got everything set up in here, and that's ready to rock and roll. Got a little bit of cardboard we can use up. What I'm gonna do, this little grate, this old fence that used to be here, they used to have a corral in this area. And it's not so big a consequence that we're gonna be burning here, because in the near future, hopefully, this is gonna be the coolest structure in North Carolina. But that's off a little bit. So I don't mind if we burn right here and we do a little bit of damage to the ground. Now I got a bunch of thicket to my left and right we're gonna do a lot of things. That barrel behind me, we got it filled up with wood. Go back and watch the videos that we did on how to make biochar. That's what we're gonna be doing with that. Also this, I'm gonna bury it into the ground up till about right here. This point right here, I'm just gonna have this stuff. I'm gonna dig a hole out of here. I'm gonna bury it up till about here. And all the rest of it will be underground. So this is the only part of this entire surface that's actually going to be in direct contact with the fire, or better still, the embers. Now, how long does it take? I wish I had a good answer for you on that. What I'm gonna do, we're gonna start burning up some stuff. We get a pile of embers and stuff like that. I'm just gonna stick it on top of here, and we might let it go overnight. In fact, that's probably what's gonna have to happen. We'll let it go overnight, and that's what we did last time when it was successful. So we'll see if that same recipe works for us today. So I'm gonna dig a hole right here. I'm gonna start my fire right here, lay that barrel down. We'll get the barrel hot, we'll get this fire hot, we'll get this hot, and then it's off to the races. The top of this lid is roughly level with the ground. I dug it out a little bit, and all I did was cover up the clay, cover up all that stuff. And like I said, it's going to get hot in there, and that clay, you're going to have to chip it out when it's all said and done, but I'll show you that. That said, it's time to get a fire going, because it's cold. All right, so the fire's going, doing exactly what we want it to. Now, we're going to let it burn a while, and as it produces embers, we're going to let this little bit burn down a little bit. And then I'm gonna take those embers and stick them directly on top of that roasting pan. And then at the same time, you know, since the wind is blowing this way, maybe you can tell from the snowflakes, we'll work it around that barrel and we'll get it hot. And so that'll also be biochar. So we're knocking out a couple of birds with one stone, getting rid of all this real thick, nasty kind of stuff. And at the same time, making ourselves some bone sauce and biochar. So we got this thing cooking and we got some embers going. So all I'm gonna do is real simple. I'm just gonna take some with this shovel. I'm gonna take some of those logs and I'm gonna stack them up right here. So I'm essentially gonna take a piece of this burn pile and I'm gonna put it over here. And then when it's there, I'm just gonna let it go all day and then it'll go overnight. Of course, I'm not gonna leave it while there's still flames here. So I'm gonna take this and I'll show you just how. I'm just gonna drag out, here's a good one. We'll put that there. Take this one, put it here. We'll take this one out. That's all we're gonna do, just drag these over. We'll get the ones that are really cooking. I'll probably have to let some of these burn down a little bit more, but all I'm gonna do is take all these hot ones and I'm gonna stack them up about yay high right here. And then when it's up there, all I gotta do at that point, I'll probably bring it up to about here. And the footprint will be about so. But as I get more and more available stuff, I'll just bring it out. But I think you get the point. Here we are the next day, so it's about 2 o'clock of the following day. I quit burning at about 5 o'clock last night. Just kind of stack this up, right? Let's see what's up. Make sure it's not too hot, that I don't have any hot embers just floating around. Seems okay so far. So here we go. Won't do the moment of truth here. I'll just get it out of the ground. And there we go. I'm just gonna kind of knock some of that off. Maybe chip off a little bit of this clay here. Just kind of leave it here because if it works out, I'm just gonna do another burn after a while. I'm gonna make quite a bit of this stuff. So I'll come back. Everything's in place, tie wire's in place, and I can hear the rattle. I can hear the rattle of the bones on the inside. Now I'm gonna take this, do the big reveal at the house. Well, this is the moment of truth. And in all honesty, I'm a little bit worried because I realized when I got up here that maybe I should have made that clay mixture a little more aqueous, a little more liquidy. I guess one good sign is all the wires in place. So we'll get that snipped off, pulled off. Got this one off. Got this one off. And here is the big reveal. Okay, do this without knocking a bunch of stuff in it. That actually looks like it should, at least the bones. I mean, they're actually brittle. You can just kind of bust them off if you wanted to. But let's see what we got on the inside here. It might be a little pasty and sticky on the inside. And that looks about the way it ought to. So there's parts of this that almost looks like glass. And folks, I can tell you right now, this is absolutely perfect. I mean, when I say perfect, it looks awful, but that's what it ought to look like. So it has like this little glassy structure on top. The smell is, if you can see William holding the camera right now, he's wincing. And it's not my favorite smell, folks, but oh my goodness. But so what's gonna happen at this point, and I don't know that you necessarily need to see this, but this is the leftover bone sauce I had from last year. Now, folks, you can cut this. Other people take and cut this stuff with some animal fat. I'm not gonna do that. I want this stuff as potent as can be. I did that the last time. I'm not gonna do it this time. I'm just gonna keep making more of it because I got more bones. And so I'm gonna get this little soupy, nasty mixture up out of here. And for those of you that didn't see the first video, all I'm gonna do is take a paintbrush and I'm gonna paint every part of every tree I wanna protect. Minus the buds. Anywhere where there might be buds, I'm gonna leave those out of there. But essentially, if it's anywhere near, and it seems like the best batch I've made so far, I mean, wow. If it's anywhere near like the stuff last time, we just put it on stakes because at the time we couldn't put it on the tree. You have to do it when the tree is dormant. So right now, this time of year in the winter is perfect. This stuff was developed by a genius by the name of Sepp Holzer, or at least he was taught it when he was a young child. This is ancient wisdom, I guess, passed down through the years and years. And finding a proper way of doing this thing has been really, really tough. But I'm glad we have a method that not only works, but works repeatedly. So that's important. So when we put this stuff on the tree, it is supposed to sorry, this stuff is caustic, folks. It's supposed to theoretically work anywhere between 30 to 50 years, depending on whom you ask. That's a long time. So I'm gonna take this stuff, I'm gonna put it in said bone sauce jar, fill it up. I'm not gonna do anything but take a little, man, I'm losing my...
Just end this.
Okay. All I'm gonna do is take a paintbrush and paint the doggone tree. So until next time, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. And it is, and this is part of it. We'll see you next time.